Okay, go ahead.
Have you been recording all along?
No, I just started when you said that.
Oh. He's been recording all along. No, he hasn't.
Viva Chile, viva Chile, a Chile quiero, chileno yo soy.
He's asking, what does that mean? I said, well, it's kind of a play on words in English. It's either a really hot chili pepper or it's chili just on fire to the maximum. We say chile al máximo. And they try to understand why I would call it this because it sounds kind of strange to them. But at any rate, the show is here, and we are coming to you with more information, great information about Chile today to help you keep up with what's going on here and help you perhaps make your decision about the country. I'm going to be talking about the big issues in Chile today, the tax reform that's going on, and that's bad news in general. The students who are now upset again about their problems with university payments and getting into universities. Also going to talk a bit about taxes here in Chile and where we relate versus to other OECD countries. I have a listener comment to talk about, some slang words to go through, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about libertarian philosophy, and specifically our enemy, the state. I'll also give you a quick update on Freedom Orchard and the cleanup and the aftermath from the earthquake up north and the fire in Valparaiso. I'm going to may even ask you some personal questions again today, like, why are you still up there? All that's coming up. Be sure to check out EscapeAmericaNow.Info. Get the books that are available there. You should be all reading up on Chile and also reading the blog entries so that when you get here you can hit the bricks running and really go forward and make your best impact in the country. Questions or comments can be sent to chileadvisorygroup@gmail.com. That's both for consulting services and just to get a general listener question or comment to the show. We'll be back in just a minute on the Overseas Radio Network. This is Dr. John Coben for Red Hot Chile. Welcome to Red Hot Chile. This is your host, Dr. John Coben. Glad you've joined us today, as usual. Well, today's show, we want to pick some odds and ends up from what's going on in Chile, as well as give you some more philosophical highlights, as I said earlier, about the idea of the state or why we want to perhaps even consider immigration or emigration, excuse me, from your current nesting place. I want to start out, though, and just hit some of the important Chilean events that are going on. One of them happens to be a tax reform. Of course, in December, unfortunately, it was elected a center leftist, re-elected because she'd had a previous term. You can't have consecutive terms as president here in Chile, and so she ran for president, caused a lot of problems, a lot of lack of growth during her term the first time around, and really blew it on the disaster relief of the 2010 earthquake at the end of her term. But for whatever reason, as socialists are, they believe promises, the vain promises of the left, and they re-elected her or elected her again after the Piñera presidency, so 4 years later. And at any rate, Bachelet is in there now trying to keep some of her promises, which include sweeping tax reform. The tax reform in general is annoying, but it's probably less than it might have otherwise been so far, which is a good thing. And the reason for that is in the left coalition there are a number of centrists. They're called here Christian Democrats, and they tend to mitigate the full-fledged impact or the full-forced impact of socialism and certainly of communism. But there are communists in the coalition as well, but they're very few, and the radical ecologists and these kinds of people tend to be ideological leftists. Most of the people on the left here are just power brokers. They just want to have a say, a status, money, friends, and it's that way everywhere in the world. Chile is no different in that sense. And they represent the largest part of the left. The Socialist Party is in with that. So is the Christian Democrat Party, even more so. And then we have this Partido para la Democracia, which is the PPD, which to me is the same thing as a Democrat in the U.S. So, and Democrats in the U.S., much as we like to call them communists and socialists, and they are at their root. But the fact is, they do not act like Fidel Castro, and they don't act like a lot of the communists I've seen in the 20th century. They're sort of a mild variety. They still can't get rid of the idea that that just doesn't work. They still want to continue to try something. You go after these ideals, these lofty goals, even though they cause mayhem, destruction of property, loss of life, murders, and they'll just continue to say, well, that was a failed try, that was a bad situation, that was an unusual circumstance, that was a unique situation. Stalin can't be repeated again. It's just too bad that Stalin got in there, or Mao or Pol Pot or these guys. because, they are aberrations. Socialists, really wouldn't do that normally. You hear this kind of nonsense. These people actually believe it, but that's the same thing here in Chile. They always want to get something more, something for nothing, and really have a sort of a parasitic existence. And so these politicians, of course, are the greatest parasites of all. These people who are in power now, just like the center left is all over the world. They're power brokers and parasites. Well, at any rate, let's talk a bit about the tax reform they're trying to put through. There's a couple of items in there where they're somewhat innocuous. For instance, all taxes are bad. Okay, I'm a libertarian. I don't want to have hardly any state, if any state at all, frankly. I tell people in the morning I wake up as a minarchist. I have some kind of optimist about the state, and by the time I go to bed at night and study all these things about public policy, I'm definitely an anarchist. I just want to get rid of the entire thing. There's no hope. You can't even save the thing. It's so bad. And these kind of taxes are a great example. They do no good for anything except to enlarge the state and the state's control and its power regulation over us. But the sin taxes they're proposing, which is a higher, steeper tax on cigarettes and alcohol, are very bad. But they at the same time they affect much less, I suppose, large numbers of people, especially folks like me, pro-life libertarian. I do not have a problem with drinking alcohol, but I'm not a great consumer of it either, and so it's going to have very little impact on my life, and I don't smoke, and never have, and so that has no effect. But I don't like the fact that it affects other people. I mean, as a libertarian, I don't want other people to be screwed over just so I don't have to be, or I'm only thinking about myself here. So it is a bad tax, but on the list of things she's doing, it's the least egregious, I'll put it that way. The next thing she's doing is to want to boost the corporate tax rate to 25%. Now remember, under Pinochet it was 10%, and it's crept up ever since, and had, under Piñera, a temporary rise from 17 to 18.5, and then to 20 for earthquake relief. And of course that was, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary tax, as Milton Friedman says. And so that's been being pushed through and volleyed back and forth. The worst part of it is it looks like she has the votes to get it passed. She's got 55% or 56% in both houses of Congress here because of that disastrous election for the right and for libertarians. And so she's probably going to be able to pass all of this stuff. She won't be able to make the constitutional reform she wants, but she will be able to get these taxes increased. The most egregious tax, as far as most middle-class people go, because the corporate tax is going to be spread over consumers. This is not, corporations, as Walter Williams used to tell us in class economics, corporations don't pay taxes, they just collect them. And it's a pass-through to something else. So that's going to be a widespread pass over the middle class, and like all socialists, they're attacking the middle class. But the most egregious one of all these taxes is she might want to introduce a capital gains tax for housing and home sales. And this is something which has been a wonderful thing in Chile for so many years, to not have to pay capital gains on the sale of your home or anything else, stocks, bonds, gold. No, there's no silver market here, but things like that. And now how they will actually structure this, and they're talking about making it 19%, just like the EVA, the value-added tax. That would be very bad, obviously. That would affect a lot of folks who are middle class. Most of the time, socialists attack the middle class. If you haven't got that already, folks, you need to get it quickly. The rich, most of the time, are in control of these people, these power brokers, and they are getting the favors, and they are not going to end up paying. The people who get screwed over is the middle class, the people that are least likely can pay. Now, again, I'm not in favor of screwing anybody over. I'm a libertarian, as I said. I don't want taxes at all, period. But I'm just trying to go through and talk about the so-called rhetoric, the so-called justification, or the idea that they have these taxes to soak the rich and give to the poor or whatever. It doesn't happen. They're screwing over poor and especially middle-class people when they have these kinds of tax hikes. There's also a small tax hike again on the mortgage stamp. If you're going to get a loan, which only middle-class people do, they tax you to get your loan. Rich people don't pay that, neither do the very poor. So it's just a bad situation with the tax reform, but I will keep you posted on that. We're coming towards the end of the first segment. When we get back to the second segment, we'll talk about this and other things some more. Welcome on YouTube. Glad you're watching us again here live from Viña del Mar, Chile. You're listening to Red Hot Chile on the Overseas Radio Network, and we'll be right back after this.